So I want to talk to business owners today because there's a federal crime that targets business owners specifically. And most of the people charged with it, at least in my experience, never saw it coming. It's called employment tax fraud or employment tax evasion. And right now, it's one of the most aggressively prosecuted criminal tax offenses in the federal system. My name's Tyler DeWitt, and I'm a criminal tax defense attorney. And at DeWitt Law, we represent business owners nationwide facing IRS criminal investigation and federal prosecution, including some of the most serious employment tax cases. And here's how this works, right? Every time you run payroll, you technically withhold money from your employees, their federal income taxes, the employee's share of Social Security and Medicare. And that withheld money never belonged to you. And under federal law, the moment it's withheld, it is held in trust for the United States government. In fact, the IRS calls this trust fund money. And so your job as an employer is to take that money, add your matching share of payroll, payroll taxes on top of it, and send the whole thing to the IRS every single quarter. And so when business owners fall behind on payroll taxes, it usually doesn't start out as a crime. I don't think anyone's ever set out to say, hey, I'm just going to try to not pay my payroll taxes, right? I mean, generally cash gets tight. A big client is slow to pay. You tell yourself, all right, I'll catch up next quarter, but it ain't going to happen. And the quarters stack up and it's $1 million now and the balance grows and grows and grows. And at some point, the IRS stops treating this as a mistake and a collection problem and starts saying, hey, we think you meant to do it. In fact, Section 7202 of the Internal Revenue Code makes it a federal felony to willfully fail to collect or pay over employment taxes. Carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison per count. So technically, and this probably wouldn't happen if DeWitt Law represented you, hopefully, right? That's potentially 4 counts. And you could do the math, right? The exposure adds up fast. Now here's the part that surprises most people, at least from my experience. The government doesn't have to prove you spent the money on yourself, right? They don't have to prove you took lavish vacations or bought a boat. They don't have to prove that you intended to steal from anyone. They only have to prove really one thing, that you knew the taxes were due and you willfully chose not to pay them. That's not as high of a bar as you would think in a criminal case. And I think the IRS knows it. It all turns on this definition, this idea of willfulness, which is highly subjective. Most people don't want to trust their fate of answering that question in the hands of 12 jurors. But the good news is early intervention in these cases can change the trajectory. I've represented several business owners where the IRS criminal division had opened an investigation and it ended with the investigation being closed and no charges being filed. We've also negotiated outcomes that kept our clients out of prison. We've gone into federal sentencing hearings and argued successfully for no jail time. We've also had people go to jail and tried cases that were way far into the process before we got involved. But here's the thing, every one of those good outcomes started with one thing in common. The client called us early in the process. And so if you're a business owner and you're behind on payroll taxes, or you've received IRS notices about employment tax balances, or you owe $500,000 and the revenue officers made contact with you personally, if you have any reason at all to believe that this is escalating beyond a civil matter, it's so important that you call a criminal tax attorney as soon as possible. Like, not your accountant, not your Uncle Billy Bob that's a personal injury lawyer, right? Or whoever, certainly not whoever's been filing your tax return. A criminal tax attorney who understands both the tax code and the federal criminal defense process. And here at DeWitt Law, we understand not just payroll tax law and IRS enforcement, but also how to defend against a criminal case in every stage of a federal employment tax case. We represent folks nationwide, and again, early intervention is key. The earlier you call, the more options you have.